Hey there, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. And let's get started. We'll just jump right into it because I know how busy you are, and just that you carved out this amount of time is huge. So I want to honor your time and get right to it. So I just want to give you a little lay of the land for the workshop today. So here's what we're going to do. Here we are in our welcome. I'm going to go into why it's so important for us to focus on our own self care. And I'll give you a little background about how I got to be doing what I'm doing. And then we'll dive into the real meat, which is the 6 skills that I learned to help transform that grief and overwhelm. And then we'll have time for question and answer, and then I'll share some next steps. Okay. All right. So let's get started. But I just want you to take a moment if you can. I know you might be in the middle of cooking dinner, or maybe you're out on a walk, trying to find a moment, or you're driving the car, so you might not be able to do this right now. But if you can, I just take a minute, shut your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. Or you can just lower your gaze, uh, just to kind of tune out a little bit. And if you want to, you can put your hand on your chest or your hand on your belly just to kind of reconnect with yourself. And take a few breaths. And just acknowledge yourself and that you are taking the time to focus on yourself and do something that will lead to you nurturing yourself and taking care of yourself. We're so focused on everyone else that we forget about ourselves and lose ourselves. So even if you only have a 30 seconds or a minute, you can always just do exactly what we're doing right now and just literally put your hands on yourself, close your eyes, and just take a few deep breaths and reconnect and find yourself again. Okay. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and let's get started. Okay. All right. So why is this so important? And I think my mission is to share with moms who have children with a disability that your self-care, you taking care of yourself, it's essential. It's absolutely essential, and it's completely, well, maybe not completely, but mostly forgotten. We're so focused on everyone else. And I think there's two main points I want to make related to this. And the first one is, and it relates to women and mothers in general, but I think the volumes are really turned up high for us. And there's that pressure to be self-sacrificing, to be doing for everybody else, and that sort of martyr um, complex, or being focused on everyone else but ourselves. And I just really want to break that out, push that aside. And it's much easier said than done, but we do not need to do that. That is not that is not necessary. It's not okay, and it's not helpful. It's not helpful to anybody. So I just really want to give permission to leave space for yourself. We do, being a good mother does not mean being a martyr. It's not necessary. And then the other piece of it is that the more and the better we can take care of ourselves, the better we can take care of our loved ones. And they need us. Where when you have a child with a disability, we're in a long-term caregiving scenario. We're in it for the long haul. And the risk of burnout is high. And the effect of stress on the body has been shown over and over again in research studies, what it does to our mental health, what it does to our um, hormones in our body, what it does to the disease process. So it's essential that we find a way to carve out time to take care of ourselves so that we can not only enjoy our own lives, which we have a right to enjoy, but that we can also go the distance and support our children who do not have disabilities or challenges, our other loved ones that we want to be present and available to. And so, how did I get here? So, um, about 17 years ago, I was sort of laughing when I was going through pictures. I'd forgotten that we didn't have cell phones when Matt was born. So I had to go through a photo album and snap some photos from the photo album. And you can see it's a little scratched up. But my son Matt was born 17 years ago. And we found out at his delivery that he had Down syndrome. And it was a complete shock. Uh, it was a blur of a few years, really. I have to say, um, he had a lot of medical problems at the beginning. He didn't sleep. He had eating issues. It was absolutely hellish. I was a hot mess, and I was really struggling. And yet, over the years, I was able to get support. I was in therapy, and she helped me tremendously. I can't say enough about it. And there were other skills and other supports along the way that really helped me transform this feeling of grief and overwhelm and pure depletedness, exhaustion, sadness, worry, and able to transform that into a deeper sense of meaning and purpose and joy and more calm and more confidence. And it didn't happen overnight. And I stumbled around a lot trying to figure out how to do that. But over the years, things started to change. I ended up getting a divorce, and that brought on a whole new layer to everything, but I managed. And, we're getting there. I could not get a recent picture of my three teens together with me. They're not too interested in having their picture taken with their mom, except for Matt. He doesn't mind. And so these are a couple years old, but we kind of we got to our new normal. I started feeling like myself again, and life is so different, and it's richer, and it's got more meaning and purpose. And not that I don't have those feelings I had early on, they cycle through. But I know better what to do. I know how to be with them. I know how to handle them and get support that I need. And so I feel like I move through those phases faster. And I'm going to dive in right now into exactly what those skills were. So, all right, let's see. All right, so as I looked back, I tried to distill what was it? What did I have to learn? And I determined there were these sort of six skills that stood out. And the first one is really how to grieve. And I know this isn't what people want to hear, um, but it's essential as a first step. And grief grief is something that in order to move forward, I don't think we ever fully move on, but we move forward. It's something that we need to acknowledge that it's even there. And I think as moms who have a child with a disability, the roller coaster of emotions, sadness, grief, anger, worry, denial, all of these emotions that come and go and, have all sorts of different flavors, we don't necessarily see that as a grief response. And yet it is. We've had a loss. Maybe it's a loss of a myth, a loss of a dream, a loss of ease, a loss of um, yeah, I guess ease really. It kind of captures that sense of being able to kind of be carefree. That feels like it is taken from you. And that those losses need to be acknowledged and they need to be felt. And I think what happens is that A, we don't see it as grief, and B, our guilt, we start to feel guilty for even having those feelings because we feel like maybe that means that, do I not love my child? Or are people going to think I don't love my child and want my child with all of my heart if I'm feeling those feelings of anger and rage and anxiety and sadness? And so that guilt sort of cuts us off and stops us from feeling those feelings, and that's a problem. So how does this show up if we're struggling with this? You might feel irritable, you're snapping at people. um, you might just feel exhausted, and it's, that alarm goes off in the morning, you just don't want to get up, just feeling kind of tired all the time. That sense of kind of the blahs, like, the things I normally enjoy, they're not even lighting me up anymore. I don't care. And nothing's really jazzing you up. Nothing's inspiring you. Nothing excites you. You might feel like you want to have a break, but you just feel too guilty leaving your kids behind. And that, again, that guilt about it, even admitting that you're having these feelings. And then you might feel too that you and your partner are in totally different worlds. You're just separated. You're both kind of stuck in your own space and feelings and can't quite bridge the gap. So how do we learn how to grieve? And as I said before, that one of the most important things is just simply to even acknowledge that that's what you're feeling, that those feelings do exist. They're normal. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not pathological. And it's completely normal, a completely normal response. And the other piece too is finding a space to be able to feel those feelings. And writing and journaling has been shown to be hugely helpful for this. So, you might want to set aside, okay, I've got 5 minutes in the morning or at the end of the day, and I'm just going to take some time to write about how I'm feeling. How am I even feeling? Sometimes it's even just naming, what am I actually feeling right now? We're just so busy, going, taking care of everybody else. There's not really a naming of those feelings. And what does it feel like in my body as I feel those feelings? So that's really, really important. So setting aside that time to grieve, and grief rituals can also be hugely helpful, whether it's having making a grief altar or having some sort of ceremony that feels resonant to you, can be really important. and having your grief acknowledged by someone else, not just yourself, but whether it's a therapist, a coach, or a dear friend, a family member who can say, I see you. I see what you're going through. I see that. I see the pain. I see all of it. And that can be hugely healing as well. So, from grief, we move on to discernment. And by that, I mean uh, that gut feeling, your intuition. And when we don't have access to that gut feeling, our real knowing of what's true for us, we may have trouble making decisions. We might feel really intimidated by professionals that are helping us support our child. We may, they may give us information and we're blindly following it, even though there's like this little inkling of a voice or maybe a pit in your stomach that just feels like this doesn't feel right. I don't know. I don't feel like this really resonates for my child or for us as a family. And yet you're sort of still, going ahead and following it because you feel like you have to. Um, and maybe you go along with a treatment plan, whether it's, doing ABA and you don't feel like it, or being told to do a certain kind of therapy that doesn't feel right, or a diet or something that just inside it just doesn't feel right at all. But you're kind of a little disconnected from that inner knowing. So you go along with it. And maybe you're signing up for everything. All right, I'm going to do PT and OT and speech, and we're going to have it through EI, but then we're also going to go have it in a private place too, and all these things, and we're going to do horseback riding, blah, 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 on the treadmill of doing absolutely everything we can because we feel like we should, and not kind of having that, okay, what feels right to me? What feels right to my partner? What feels right for my family? And then where can I say a no? And so how do we learn how to tap into that discernment, which is so key for moving forward? And I really think a major way is going back into your body. Our body knows so much really valuable information. And we tend to just walk around the world from here up. Like we're just operating way up in here, up in our brain, and we're totally disconnected from everything that's below our neck. And we're missing out on so much valuable information from our gut, from our intuition. And it's hard to gain confidence if we're operating in that space. I have lots of wonderful exercises I do with my clients to really tap back into the body and harness that information to make better decisions. And also meditation is a fabulous, amazing way to tap in, slow down, and kind of, tune out the noise, kind of separate from your thoughts a bit and realize you are not your thoughts. And I am a facilitator for Danielle Laporte's work of the Desire Map, and now her new work called Heart Centered. And the Desire Map is basically flipping goal setting up on its head. So usually we go, I'm going to set this goal, and when I get that goal, I'm going to feel a certain way. And yet sometimes we get the goal and we don't feel anything the way we thought we were going to feel because we've chased an external thinking it's going to give us this internal feeling, and it doesn't always match, often doesn't. So she flips it. And first you figure, how do I want to feel every day? And then how do I create that? So maybe you want more ease in your life. Maybe you want more connection. You want to feel connected to your family. So then when you're making those decisions about how many therapies are we going to have involved, kind of realizing, wow, when we hit a certain amount, we're just driving. We're never having family time. We're never feeling connected. And yes, I want to help my child, but at the same time, this is really important and important for their development. So it helps you figure out how to make those decisions when you're able to know how you want to feel and how you want your family to feel. And I also do thought work with my clients. So again, that sense that these thoughts that we're having, they're just thoughts. They're not necessarily true. And we operate as if they are the absolute truth. And there are amazing thought work exercises that I work through with my clients to help them gain some perspective about, okay, what is true, what isn't true, but I've made true, and then gaining that perspective so that you can make better decisions. This is so important to be able to gain your confidence again, to make better decisions that fully align with you, and to getting some sense of um, meaning and purpose back. Okay, so third, from the grief and discernment, next comes setting boundaries. So, boundaries you can think of, there's boundaries that we set for ourselves, whether it's what we eat, what we drink, what we watch, our social media use, that kind of thing. And then there's boundaries with others. So when we don't have boundaries, and sometimes the harder part is maybe we set a boundary, but it's hard to enforce it and keep it going. It shows up as feeling depleted, run down. You might feel like you have no time for yourself. You're feeling resentful of everything you have to do. If someone asks you to do the smallest thing, it just feels like, ugh, I feel really annoyed. You might feel really disempowered, disrespected, feel like a victim. You might start binge watching, Netflix, or, being on Facebook or Instagram, and all of a sudden an hour goes by and you're like, how did that happen? Because you don't have a boundary with yourself. Um, so this is so key again to creating a life that you want to have, is being able to set these boundaries. It's critical. And so how do we do that? And again, it really builds from that discernment. We have to know what our gut is telling us, what our intuition is telling us. And that is such a key point for moving forward and setting about knowing what to set. What is, maybe I'm feeling really angry. What's going on? Ding, ding, ding. Time to set a boundary. Something's not feeling right. Also acknowledging that I'm worthy of having this boundary. I'm worthy of having this need filled for myself. I deserve that. I don't need to be a martyr. And then a lot of it too is practice and communication. So learning how to ask for what we need, learning how to make those requests with our partners, and being able to stick with that. Maybe having an accountability partner of some sort, whether through a coach or a friend, to stick with that. Okay, I really want to exercise. I feel better when I exercise. I need it for my mental health. I need to find time, coordinate with my partner so that this happens on the regular. So, how do you communicate that? Really important. Okay. All right. So, fourth, decluttering. So, this is really about simplifying, getting rid of all the extra. So important. When the Marie Kondo book about tidying up came out, I devoured it. I had recently been divorced. I was living in my own house with the kids. They were going back and forth, and it felt very, very chaotic. And I was struggling with, who am I? I didn't even know. I was just in such a state of flux and still really dealing with my grief over Matt and kind of making sense of it all. And I don't know, something just spoke to me about that book. And I ended up doing the KonMari method on my whole house. And it took a lot of time, but it was a huge transformation for me. It was like I let go of all this stuff and all this emotional stuff, and it spilled over into my calendar and into my relationships. And it was like this deep, deep decluttering of everything that didn't serve me. And then really choosing what I wanted to keep. I was so into it. I became trained by Marie Kondo to be a KonMari consultant. I believed in it so much. So what does it look like when we need to declutter, when we're struggling with this? And it might look like it's really hard to find important papers or anything. I can't find my keys. I can't find this important thing. I can't find it. Everything's kind of not really in its place. I don't know where anything is. It feels a little chaotic. You might be dropping the ball on making appointments, keeping appointments, or certain events that are coming up, or they sneak up on you, and you're kind of, I wasn't prepared for that. Maybe some of your relationships are draining. You notice, wow, every time I get together with this person, I leave feeling tired, or I don't feel good about myself. Um, you might open your closet and look in, or your drawer, and just be like, oh, none of this lights me up. I don't want to wear any of this. It doesn't feel like me at all. You might feel like I want to have people over and connect and be social, but my house just feels so chaotic, and I can't even imagine pulling a meal off because it's just feeling like we're just treading water. Or maybe your home doesn't feel like a place where you can really rejuvenate and reconnect with yourself. So how do we learn to do this? Again, the KonMari method is amazing, but it's intense. So it's not for everybody. If you're up for it, I highly, highly recommend it. There are so many resources online to be able to help with that. I have a bunch in my blog of how to break it down. Um, so there is that. But there are many other ways to do it. Um, I think the most important elements of any decluttering um, push is that you be systematic about it. You go through categories and make sure it's very systematic, and making sure that you're committed. It's one of those things that when it's done haphazardly, it doesn't really give you the right boost. Um, but when you're really systematic and committed and follow through, it can have tremendous, tremendous effect on the ease and joy in your life. And I think too, what's interesting is when you do your belongings and the things, it's almost like you build this muscle, you build this decision making muscle, and you learn what sparks joy, what doesn't spark joy from your things. And then it spills over into activities, spills over into relationships. So there's sort of this cascade effect, and it's pretty profound. So I would say that that was key for me moving forward, was decluttering. And then next we move on to time management, time and energy management. So what does this look like? I don't need to explain. I think we all feel this probably the most on a daily basis, that sense of I'm so busy. Someone asks you how you are, and your knee jerk response is busy. I'm so busy. Maybe you're forgetting important events, or you feeling like you just get to the end of your day and you're like, there's just not enough hours in the day. There's not enough time. I can't get everything done. Important things sneak up, whether it's, a follow up with the ophthalmologist, or something with the house, the gutters, the whatever, they're kind of sneaking up on you. You can't remember, has it been 3 years since we had the gutters cleaned out? All those things just feel like a big jumbled mess. And then you also don't have time for consistent self-care. And so how do we do this? This is not necessarily fun work, but boy, the payoff is huge. And I would say always start off with some sort of time audit. Again, this isn't necessarily fun, but if you can get templates online where you can have your day broken up into 30-minute increments, and just log for a day, 3 days if you can, how am I spending my time? And then going back through that afterwards and looking at, wow, or maybe putting it into little categories and realizing, wow, I'm wasting a lot of time on that, um, and really seeing the patterns. And then seeing, like, is that how I want to be spending my time, or do I want to be spending my time on something else? So it gives you that just data to work from. And then I think too, it's really key to do a brain sweep. Some people call it a brain dump, but I think that's kind of nasty. So I call it a brain sweep. So it's just taking all that information, all the to dos, all the things swirling around, the phone calls, the this, the that, and just get them out of your head and put them on paper. If you can, I often will make a grid and I have, the various categories with home, kids, personal, whatever it might be, the categories in your life, and see if you can kind of dump them into those categories. It just helps get it out. And our brains were just not meant to store all of that knowledge. It's just not how we're meant to be. So it can create a real sense of chaos when it's all up in there and it's not out on paper. And then you can pull from that list, plug those things into your to-do list or your calendar to get them done. I'm a big fan of time blocking. So that means that, certain tasks happen at certain times. And if you can really look at your energy during the day and realize, okay, I want the hard things need to be early in the day when I'm fresh. The easier, more mindless things, those can go at the end of the day. So, whether it's bills or it's work, your own personal work, making phone calls, folding the laundry, just make sure that they're all scheduled and that they have, that you're maximizing your energy for the day. Really, really important. You've got to have a filing system that works and that you're actually using, just so the papers don't pile up. You need a system for your appointments. It really helps now with all the digital, my charts and all does help a lot for the appointments. But whether it's using, I often just use my phone for the reminders, so helpful, to cue myself to either make an appointment for my son or for myself or my other children. And you can have them timed. Hugely, hugely helpful. You can put in everything. You can put in when the gutters need to be done, when you need to order your Christmas cards, if you send Christmas cards, whatever it might be. Everything can just go in as a reminder on your phone. Any automation that you can set up is huge. And automation being whether it's auto bill pay, maybe getting your groceries delivered, having someone mow your lawn. I have someone mow my lawn. It's just the most, it just psychically, emotionally helps me so much. Whatever you can afford, whatever you can have done, or bartered out, whatever that you can do to support you through automation or just getting the help you need by paying for it, do it. Do it, do it, do it. Wherever you can alleviate that, I highly recommend it. It's money well spent. Okay, so all of this dun, 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 leads to self-care, which is really the whole point, right? So all of these other skills are really the backdrop and the pillars of getting to a self-care practice that's actually going to sustain you. And notice I use the word practice. It's kind of like when you're thirsty, it's too late, you're already dehydrated. You can't just sort of plug in a little self-care here and there when you're starting to feel a little depleted, or hitting the wall. It's got to be a practice, it needs to be regular. You shouldn't have to claw for it. It should just be part of the week, even if it's small. I know it's not going to be perfect. It can be small. So when we don't have real sustaining self-care practices, it shows up like this. You're feeling drained and tired. You feel resentful. You even feel like planning, planning something feels like, ah, forget it. I'm too tired. I can't even wrap my head around planning something. It feels like too much. You feel disconnected from yourself. You feel like, what happened to the old me? I don't know who I am anymore. Or you might feel like you got out for a couple hours and it did nothing. You just feel like maybe it helped for a moment. And then the minute you walk back in the door, you're like, oh God, it just was a drop in the bucket. I'm like, my deficit is just so big. Um, and maybe you're noticing changes in your sleep, your eating, your hygiene habits. You might have pain, you might have aches, you might find that you're getting sick more often, those kinds of things. So how do we get this self-care practice? And again, like I said, those first 5 skills are so key to building the sustainable, consistent, nourishing self-care practice. And it's not going to be perfect. Try not to be derailed like that. It's so easy. I remember when I first started meditating, I felt like it had to be like the stage had to be perfect, had to be totally quiet. Da, 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 da. But now I Scooby Doo can be off in the other room, and I can sit on my cushion and still drop into that space. Just letting go of some of that perfection of what it should look like will really help you build a practice that you stay with rather than feeling kind of like, forget it. I can't, I can't get it perfect. So I'm just going to let it go totally. And so I do um, various exercises with my clients to help tune into what is actually nourishing and sustaining. There's a wonderful exercise by Danielle Laporte called the self-care laundry list that I do. And then a lot of it too is setting the habit and setting that helping my clients set boundaries to make sure their self-care practices are honored by everyone around. So easy for us to just throw them out the window the minute someone places a demand on us. Um, but so really focusing in on habitualizing it, making it something that happens regular so that it doesn't need to be constantly negotiated. All right, so there's the recap. So grief, discernment, setting boundaries, decluttering, time and energy management, and then self-care. All right, so how can we get more support to make this happen? Um, there are so many Facebook groups, online programs, therapists, coaches that you can get support from. Again, they are wonderful, the groups where we can get support for ideas for our children and content for our children. And I think it's also really important to put that aside at a certain point and get that support for yourself. It's so important. Um, and again, remembering this is we're in this for the long haul. And so making that acknowledging that, embracing that your mental well-being is so key to your happiness and the happiness of your whole family and the well-being of your whole family. And we've all heard the oxygen mask metaphor too many times, but it really does kind of say it all. And it's as cliche as it is true. It's really true. Um, I offer one-on-one coaching where I help clients various intensity levels, whether they want to do 6 sessions, 12 sessions, or 24 sessions to basically go through these 6 skills. And I tailor our work together based on what my client wants to focus on. Some of those areas may need more focus and practice than others. So I work with them to make it work for them and be most beneficial. I also have an email newsletter and I'm on Instagram sharing information. And I am 95% certain I'm going to offer a membership for self-care for moms who have a child with a disability in the very near future. If you have any ideas or thoughts on that, please shoot them my way. I would really want to hear what you need, what you want, and so that I can serve valuable, actionable, meaningful, doable information for you. And then I also will offer other workshops. So again, if you have a certain topic or you want to do a deeper dive on one of these skills, like maybe it's automation. All right, how do I bring more automation into my how my home operates, that kind of thing, or whether it's doing some grief journal writing, please let me know. I'm all ears. And so Um, if you want to find me, you can go to my website and or you can email me. On my website there's also a link to my online schedule, so if you want to just have a chat for an hour and just see if I might be able to support you in any way, please follow that link and schedule a discovery call. It's free, and we can just have a chat and see if I can be of support in any way, shape, or form, and what that might look like. So, um, I just want to take a moment again to um, before we part. Let's close our eyes again and just ground back, remembering who we are. You can shut your eyes or just lower them gently. Put your hand on a belly or on your chest just to feel yourself, remember yourself. And I just want to acknowledge again your time and effort to come here to do something for yourself. And I applaud you, and I'm grateful that you're here. So grateful that you came. And I hope what I shared today will be of benefit to you. And again, if there's anything you take with you, you matter. Your well being matters, not only for you as a human being on this planet, but as a caregiver for your child. And if you have other children or spouse, partner, it's key. All right, let's take one last deep breath together. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. Okay, be in touch.